Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody, and welcome to Pangolin, the Conservation Podcast. The show dedicated to exploring and amplifying the world's underappreciated conservation stories. The stories that inspire me, and I hope will inspire you too. I'm your host, Jack Baker, and today I am joined by the one and only Patrícia Medici to discuss one of my favorite species, the tapir. We talk about what tapirs are, why they undoubtedly have the cutest babies in the animal kingdom, and how we can all act to protect them. We also discuss what it's like to chair an IUCN specialist group, the importance of removing negative stereotypes from animals, and the power of crazy ideas. I don't want to give too much away, but this conversation may actually prove that spreading rumours can be a good thing. So, for anyone who isn't familiar with her work, Patrícia has worked with tapirs for over 25 years, so we really have a lot of ground to cover, and there's no one better to discuss these amazing animals with, and I'm so excited. So, without further ado, let's get started. And welcome back to the show. I am now joined by Patrícia Medici, the founder of the Lowland Tapir Conservation Initiative, the chair of the IUCN Tapir Specialist Group, and I'm going to dub you the protector of actually one of my favourite species, the tapir. I'm so excited to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining me. And yes, first thing to say, I guess, is thank you so much for making the time to chat today.
No, thank you. I'm super happy to be here. I never miss a chance to talk about tapirs.
Perfect. That's worked out perfectly for me, and neither do I, except I feel like I'm going to have so much more information after this hour of us chatting to impart to people. It's just going to be fantastic for me. Um, I guess I gave you a brief introduction there, but I guess you probably will do a better job at introducing yourself and kind of explaining what it is you actually kind of do. So I wondered, just to get started, do you want to introduce yourself to the listeners and tell them a little bit about your work?
Yes, of course. My name is Patrícia Medici. I'm from Brazil. I'm a conservationist, field researcher conservationist from Brazil. I've been dedicating my life to the conservation of tapirs for the past 25 years. Last year we celebrated our 25th anniversary. We started the Lowland Tapir Conservation Initiative in 1996 as part of the work of this Brazilian nonprofit called IPE, Instituto de Pesquisas Ecológicas, Institute for Ecological Research. We have a whole a large number of different projects being carried out here in Brazil in different parts of the country, and the Lowland Tapir Conservation Initiative is part of that. We work throughout Brazil. We work in the four major biomes where tapirs are found: Atlantic Forest, Amazon, Cerrado, and the Pantanal. And we do research. So we collect all the necessary scientific ecological information about the animal in all these different places, and we look at the different threats affecting them in all these different places, and we develop strategies to conserving them throughout Brazil. Besides, this hat, field researcher, I wear a second hat, which is I'm the chair of the tapir specialist group, the IUCN tapir specialist group, for the past 20 something years. It's a wonderful group of people, 150 members from 27 different countries: Latin America, Southeast Asia, the US, Europe. Lots of young people, lots of young researchers, young conservationists, very passionate about tapirs and developing all kinds of different projects to try and conserving them. So I'm very proud of the tapir specialist group, and I'm happy to be the chair for such a long time. So this is more or less what I do right now.
Mhm, mhm. I like how you say more or less, like it's not a lot. Like it's more or less what I do. That's a very impressive scene. That's a lot of stuff going on and really interesting. um, there's so much there I want to ask you about, and I think we're going to get to quite a lot of it as we go through the interview today. I've got a couple of different questions about a couple of those, about both those hats and all sorts of things written down. So I'm very excited to ask about all of them. But I guess the place we need to start for, I mean, I'm very aware of them, and I know a couple of my other guests. When I've mentioned that I was contacting Patricia about tapirs, they were so excited because they love tapirs as well. So we've had some interest in tapirs already. But for those people out there who maybe don't know about tapirs and have maybe no idea what we're talking about, they can't even picture one in their minds. What is a tapir? How would you kind of introduce it to the listeners who don't know much about them?
All right, I could speak for about an hour, talking about what a taper is, but I'll try not to do that. Well, they're large mammals. It's the lowland tapir, the species I work with. It's the largest land mammal in South America, so they're big. We're talking 250 kilos. They're related to horses and rhinos. Lots of people think that tapirs are related to elephants because they have the proboscis. It's very short, but it kind of looks like a small elephant proboscis. So, but no, they're related to rhinos and horses. They are herbivores, so they don't eat meat. It's only vegetables, plant parts. 50%, 50 or 60% of the diet consists of fruit, so they eat lots of fruit, mostly palm fruits from palm trees, the coconuts. That it's a super important food resource for tapirs. They're nocturnal. More, it's more. They're more like crepuscular, dawn and dusk. It's those are the times of the day when they're super active, foraging, looking for food, going about their home ranges. They're wide-ranging species, so they have large home ranges. We're talking about 800 hectares. We used to give a bit of a comparison. It's about 800 soccer fields, so it's a huge area that they need to find all the food and the water and everything they need to survive and reproduce and persist in the habitat. They are solitary, but it's common to see tapirs together, the female with the male when they're reproducing, the female with the baby when the baby is still living with the mom. Tapirs are phenomenal swimmers. They have a very close association with water. They need the water, of course, to drink. They need the water to thermoregulate because they're very big. So when it's really hot, they need to go to the water to lower their temperature. What else? They have a very slow reproductive cycle. It takes gestation period is about 13, 14 months. Only one baby is born. And if people haven't seen a baby tapir, we call it the baby watermelon, they have to, because it's the cutest animal offspring in the animal kingdom. It's this little cute watermelon. You have to see it. And only one of those is born, and it takes a while for that female to get into heat again. So we're talking about a 2-year reproductive cycle, which means that tapir populations, when they decline, when they're suffering the effects of any threats and they decline, it's very unlikely they will be able to recover. So it's an animal that we have to pay attention to.
Yes, I think that was the kind of perfect introduction to them, and I think covers so many of the reasons why I love the tapir as well. I agree wholeheartedly with the cutest babies in the animal kingdom. They are the sweetest, smallest things, and I've been lucky enough to see them. And you look at
Hmm.
pictures, and you kind of think, oh, they are very, very cute. But if you're really going for a full experience, look at a video. Try and find some kind of content of them moving as well, because I feel like it's when they're just these tiny little things, but so cute, fantastic. You definitely picked an excellent species to kind of
Uh-huh.
work with, I think, in terms of the cute factor.
I know. I, I know. I know. I know. You don't have to convince me.
um, well, moving on from that, before we just go down a spiral of me telling you how amazing the animal is, I wondered, kind of, you mentioned it there, they kind of travel over these huge areas, and I imagine that they play, because they
Hmm.
are, and they're eating a lot of these fruits, and kind of, I imagine they play quite an important ecological role. They're not just kind of interesting for the sake of being interested. They probably, all of those kind of features of them are quite important. So I was wondering if you could explain kind of the ecological role of the tapir and where it sits in kind of an ecosystem.
Yes, of course. We call tapirs the gardeners of the forest, ecosystem engineers. There's all kinds of expressions, but gardeners of the forest, that tells you about the importance that these animals have when it comes to creating and maintaining the functioning of the forest, the functioning of the habitat, the maintenance of biodiversity. As I said, they move a lot. They have these huge home ranges, and they move all the time when they're foraging during the night. Long distances, sometimes 10 kilometers in one night of
Mhm,
foraging. And as they eat, and as we said, 50% of their diet consists of fruit, so it's a lot of seeds, lots and lots of seeds that they
mhm,
swallow every night when they're eating. And as they move these long distances, they defecate. So they transport all these seeds that they swallowed to different parts of their home ranges, and then they defecate and they deposit all those different seeds in different parts of the habitat. So we like to say that they play with biodiversity. They take one seed from here, they bring it, to a different place 10 kilometers from here, and then they eat something over there and they bring it back here where it was before. So it has a huge effect, as I said, on the creation of diversity, on the establishment of diversity, and also on the maintenance of diversity and the functioning of the forest. So, uh, one forest where tapirs go extinct will certainly be very different from a forest where they're present, and it will be certainly less diverse. So, gardeners of the forest, very, very important animals when it comes to their ecological role.
mhm, mhm. That's fantastic, and I think it's really interesting because it's something that I think when I think of kind of seed dispersing animals and kind of animals that promote this type of biodiversity, in my mind, things that come to into
Hmm.
my head are things like birds or monkeys, or things that kind of travel long,
Hmm.
kind of do kind of long distance. They're small, they kind of move around a lot, and so it's interesting to hear about the tapir in this way as well, because I think it's not something that people would necessarily expect the role for, that you wouldn't expect it to be kind of doing these kind of important tasks almost. So that's really really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And they're because they're big and they eat a lot, and it's about 6, 7, 8 kilos of plant parts and fruit every night.
Hmm.
So it's a lot of seeds. So that's where the power of tapirs as dispersing individuals, real, it's there. Just the sheer amount of seeds that they disperse.
Mhm, mhm. That's fantastic and really, really interesting. And I think I've
Yeah.
already learned something. I suppose that I didn't know about tapirs. But I wondered, for people maybe who are fans of the animal, we've kind of talked about the role that they play and kind of I kind of given a little introduction, but for the real kind of
Mhm.
hardcore, really into tapirs, the big fans out there, is there anything that might shock them, or anything that you would tell someone who kind of knows a little, like already had an idea of what a tapir was? What would be something that they might not know, might surprise them?
Yeah, it's something that we discovered in the field while monitoring the animals, is that as we said before, they are solitary. That it's part of their natural history, and it is like that. But they interact with other tapirs a lot more than we thought
Mhm,
before. I mentioned before, well, we see females and males when they're reproducing during the mating season. We see the female with the baby, but there's actually a lot more than that. We have a grid of 100 camera traps in our study area in the Pantanal, and so we see and it's been there for 10 years. This all these different cameras, all throughout the ranch where we work, and we see all kinds of behavior, and we see that actually the female and the male, the mating pairs, they spend a lot more time together than we think. The males, they actually they participate in caring for the offsprings, which is something that we had no idea. It was the camera traps that showed us, and it's something that but nobody really knows. We have two mating pairs where the males, they're very good fathers. They spend quite a bit of time with their offsprings in the Pantanal. So I think this is completely unexpected from a species that is, it's solitary. So nobody really knows about that. I find this fascinating.
It's really really interesting actually, yeah, and it's not something I suppose you'd expect from from everything you might have known before.
Yeah.
What
Yes.
what how do you even go about trying to learn more when you witness a behavior like that for maybe the first time, where you're kind of starting to track it and it's starting to look like there's this new information out there? How do you begin to put that picture together in your head and try and study this more, because it sounds like a very difficult task.
Yes, it's one of those moments when you discover something like that, and you just think, well, what the hell am I doing? Because I've been working with these animals for 25 years, and as it turns out, I don't know anything about them. So it's super exciting, but it can be frustrating at times. It's like, how come? I was supposed to know everything about them, but yes, the camera traps have been bringing loads of new information for us. Most of the information related to reproduction, to
Mhm,
social organization, how they interact and how they reproduce, and all the little missing pieces of the puzzle that we need to figure out the whole natural history and ecology and biology of these animals.
mhm, mhm. That's yeah. It must be, yes. I suppose that thing as well, when it's shocking sometimes when you're like, I should have known all of this. I've been working with them for that long, but it also must be so exciting to be like, I'm this much closer. I now have one more piece of the puzzle to slot in. Like that. That must be the best feeling in the world.
Yes, it's super exciting. Every time we go to the field, every time we retrieve the memory cards from our camera traps in the Pantanal, in the Amazon, every time we learn something new.
Mhm,
Every single time we see a different behavior, we see a different interaction. So we never cease to learn. It's super exciting always.
It must be, and I think what this conversation is leading to is kind of, unfortunately, we're gonna flip, because we have so much fun, exciting, interesting things, but something that is, I think, equally as important, and I wish we didn't have to
Hmm.
talk about, but I think really important to talk about and let people know about, is that these animals, as amazing and mysterious and as as much as there is out there to discover about them, they're also they're threatened. There's four species of tapir, I believe. There's the Malayan, Baird's, Mountain, and Lowland. I think, I don't know why I'm listing them to you, but for
Yes.
listeners,
Hmm.
uh, there's those, they're out there, um, but they're threatened, and it's very very sad. It's but I think it's something we have to talk about, and I wondered, could you kind of explain maybe some of the threats to the listeners, tell them a little bit about them.
Yes, of course. Well, when you think lowland tapirs here in South America, we have a huge distribution. So we have lowland tapirs here in South America in 11 different countries, 21 different ecoregions, and all kinds of different contexts,
Hmm.
different landscapes, different types of habitat, different biomes. So we have very different threats affecting tapirs in each one of these different parts of South America. And the same for malign tapirs in Southeast Asia, for Baird's tapirs in Central America, and for mountain tapirs in the Andes, up in the mountains. The main threats affecting, I would say, the four of them would include, of course, habitat destruction and fragmentation. It's still happening in many parts of the distribution of the four species. Hunting, um, poaching, hunting, it's illegal in most parts of the distribution of the four species, but it still takes place mostly for the consumption of the meat, which is in some areas very much appreciated by local communities. Some parts of tapirs are also used for medicinal purposes. So it's also a cause for hunting. Roadkill is a huge problem for these animals in, again, many parts of their distribution. Here in Brazil, lowland tapirs, I would say that right now it's the main threat affecting tapirs in Brazil. Then we have pesticide contamination, which we studied here in the Cerrado in Brazil. We have fire. I'm sure you heard about the big fires here in Brazil, in the Pantanal and in the Amazon in 2020. That was a huge impact, had a huge impact on tapirs in these two biomes. We have mining, we have palm oil. So it's a combination of the usual suspects that, the different threats that affect many different species throughout the world, and some specific ones in some specific parts of their distribution. So it's a combination of several threats, really.
It's and it must be such a tricky problem, and it's kind of reminding me of so many other conversations that I've had with Arnaud about the kind of similar threats, because it's similar habitats to kind of the anteaters and armadillos and things that we've spoken about before, but also kind of, yes, across continents where I've spoken to people about lemurs, or whether it's koalas or red pandas or whatever it is that I've spoken to people about. There's these same kind of threats cropping up, and it must be it's probably a unique combination of the usual suspects, but it's still yes, the ones that are, yes, horrifying, and yes, I don't know how does your organization go about when it is such a list, a laundry list that's huge and complex? How do you and your organization go about kind of starting to address these?
Well, we're strong believers that we need scientific data, scientific results to subsidize the development of conservation strategies. So the heart of the work we do is the like 60% of what we do is collecting data. It's spending time in the field, monitoring the animals, monitoring the habitat, monitoring the different threats in different parts of the distribution, putting numbers to all this. So if roadkill is a threat, okay, how many tapirs do we lose to highways every year? Pesticide contamination is a threat. Okay, how many animals get contaminated every year, and where the pesticides come from? So we have to have a really good idea of how what's a tapir in each one of these different parts of the country where we work. What's a tapir in the Amazon? What are the threats affecting the animals? What's a tapir in the Pantanal? What's a tapir in the Atlantic forest, and so on? And so that we can have a really good view of everything that's going on, everything, all the issues we have to deal with. And then we try and develop what we call mitigation plans, threat mitigation plans. So if we're dealing with roadkill, we have to go highway by highway and find ways to solve, find the most critical places for where tapirs are getting hit, and try and solve that problem. So what do we need to do? We need underpasses. We need fencing. Here we need speed radars. Here we need signage, educational signage. So we go threat by threat, region by region, trying to be very specific and developing
Mhm.
this different mitigation plans for different problems.
Mhm.
So that's the main thing for us. Uh, Very high quality scientific data,
Mhm.
long term most of the times,
Mhm.
and try and develop these mitigation plans based on the data, applying the data that we have collected, and then we take those mitigation plans and we lobby for the implementation of the different strategies we're proposing. And that's the hardest part, right? Because you have to go to all the different stakeholders, all the different managers of highways, managers of sugarcane companies or soy companies and soy properties, and then we have to talk, bring everybody to the table, and lobby, and just
Mhm.
just tell people what needs to be done. And sometimes we're successful and sometimes we're not, but that's more or less what we're trying to do.
Mhm. Mhm. I wondered to kind of, um, yeah, it makes perfect sense, and it's yes, going and with these solutions and kind of lobbying and trying to make these changes is is yeah, I think the best. You've got 25 years of experience with it. It must be the best because you worked with it for so long to try and work all this out. And I wondered over
Yeah.
that time, it must be challenging and there must be a lot of knockbacks, but in terms of successes, there must also be huge successes that you've seen over that time. What have been kind of some of the projects that really, for you, have felt like the biggest successes or the things that you're most proudest of?
Hmm. Well, we have been able to reduce roadkill in several highways here in
Mhm.
Brazil through mitigation plans, through negotiations with the stakeholders and the managers of the highways. One of them in particular, it's this highway that crosses Morro do Diabo State Park, which is our study area in the Atlantic Forest.
Mhm.
We used to lose about 8 tapirs to that highway every year.
Mhm.
So they would get hit by cars and killed. We monitored that highway for quite a long time, for 6 or 7 years. So it was an average of 8 tapirs lost every single year, and it's a small tapir population. So that kind of impact it means a lot
Mhm.
to the population. It's a huge loss, and we developed a mitigation plan for that highway. It's a small one, so we were able to reach all the different stakeholders involved in the process. And we had speed radars installed. We had big portal, how do you say in English, big
Mhm.
signs in the beginning and in the end of the highway, just telling people, look, you're entering a protected area, so slow down. There's animals crossing the highway, so be careful, blah, blah, blah. And that helps a lot when people know that they're actually crossing a natural area. And lots and lots of signage. And we reduced that number of tapirs lost, 8 per year, to 1 tapir every 3 years. So that was actually the main thing for us, the main sign that it's possible to reduce the impact of wildlife roadkill,
Mhm.
and that the strategy is negotiation. You have to sit down with the people that are involved, and discuss what can be done. So that was a huge success for us, and that's we're replicating that here in the Cerrado and also in the Pantanal and in the future in the Amazon.
Mhm. Mhm. That's fantastic, and I think really really interesting, and so like uplifting to after hearing about threats. It's nice to hear that there are things that can be done,
Yes.
especially.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, were you going to say something? Or
No, no, and there. Well, but just wanted to compliment. There's threats that are more straightforward
Mhm.
for you to work, like roadkill.
Yeah.
You monitor the highway. You find out how many animals you're losing to that highway every year, so you get the number. There's tons of different roadkill mitigation strategies, tools available. So you just work with an expert. We have someone who helps us here in Brazil, a major expert on road ecology. So you work with someone, we develop a mitigation plan. Uh, you know what the stakeholders are. So we have the managers, we have the transportation agencies, blah blah blah. So we know where to go, we know where to go and lobby. But when it comes to pesticide contamination, for instance, it's very complicated, because you have let's say a huge
Mhm.
area like our study area here in the Cerrado. It's 2,200 square kilometers, and we have everything. We have sugarcane, we have soy, we have cattle ranching, we have corn, we have cotton, we have small farmers, we have all kinds of types, different types of land use. So it's very difficult to know where the pesticides come from.
Mhm.
And we find that the tapirs are contaminated, but is it coming from the soy? Is it coming from the sugarcane? Tapirs have large home ranges, so they go everywhere. They move a lot, so they are exposed in many different ways. So who do we bring to the table? Who do we talk to? The big farmer, the big industry, the small farmer. So it's so there's threats that are easier to deal with, and others that are much more complicated. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, that's yes, it makes perfect sense, and it's especially when it's involving people's livelihoods and also kind of probably government
Yeah.
stakeholders, all sorts of. It becomes a very difficult puzzle, a difficult kind of ball of string to kind of pull apart and untangle and work out the solutions for. I imagine because yes,
Yes.
I imagine you're never going to please everybody, so you're going to have to find the best solution possible, and it must be an impossible challenge sometimes. But
It is.
mhm, mhm. I wondered. It kind of leads nicely, I suppose, into kind of another question that I wanted to ask, though, and that's I watched your TED talk because I was doing my research and it popped up. And anyone who has a TED talk, any excuse to watch a TED talk, I'm going to watch a TED talk. Um, and when I watched it, there was a lot about kind of the kind of you introducing the tapir and talking to this audience about how you were had to be creative and kind of I wrote down creative, but I believe you called it crazy in the TED talk about how you think of the solutions. And I wondered, in terms of tackling things and kind of what are the kind of crazy or out there ideas that you've had that kind of aren't the solutions to the more complex problems, or maybe the bizarre solutions to the easier problems, or like what are some of the crazier or more out there ideas that you've had?
It's funny that you talk about the TED Talk, because the crazy idea I talked about during the talk was the reflective colors, right?
Yes.
For the tapirs crossing the highways in the Cerrado, and we had 20 something, I think 23 tapirs with reflective colors in the area, and three of them got hit by cars and killed. So it's we can't really say that our crazy idea was super successful in that
Mhm.
case. But anyway, it was a crazy idea. We tried, and who knows if it, you know, delayed the death of some of the
Mhm.
tapirs. But anyway, another crazy idea that we had in the Cerrado was that we found that there's quite a bit of hunting in the
Mhm.
Cerrado study area. We evaluated the impact of that activity. Lots of poaching, actually, lots of illegal poaching in the region.
Mhm.
And at the same time as we were, you know, collecting data about use of space and using telemetry, cameras, social organization, reproduction, we also collect a lot of information about tapir
Mhm.
health. So every time we capture a tapir to install a collar, we have to anesthetize the animal. So we take that opportunity. We have the animal is, you know, anesthetized, is sleeping in front of us. So we take that opportunity to collect all kinds of biological samples for health screening of the animal, and also genetics, and we're studying microplastics and all kinds of questions that we have. And we know that tapirs carry lots and lots of infectious diseases.
Mhm.
They're exposed to these different diseases in the habitat when they have contact with domestic animals, livestock. Um, but they don't. They're not sick, but they have been exposed, and they carry the antibodies. So we know that it's these diseases are there, they're in the environment, and we just have to watch, make sure that we're ready to intervene if something comes up. Um, but as we were talking with all these hunters and finding, collecting data about all these different infectious diseases and animals contaminated by pesticides, so all of these different pieces of data coming in, we said, well, there's lots of hunting going on. When we talk about the diseases with the people we have been talking with, we've been interviewing, it doesn't look like they have ever heard about this, that the animals that they're hurting actually carry diseases.
Hmm.
So we have to, scare the hell out of them and tell them that tapirs carry loads of diseases, that they can die if they eat a tapir. They will certainly die. So we started, spreading all these different rumors. uh, like, we had WhatsApp networks with members of the community, because they were helping us collect data about roadkill. So every time they saw a tapir killed by the highway, they would let us know so that we could go and inspect the carcass.
Hmm.
So we spread, these rumors throughout several WhatsApp networks that we had, and everybody in the community was coming to us. But really, if we are gonna die if we eat a tapir, and we were like, yes, you should never eat tapir meat. So it's just the little crazy stuff that sometimes you do when you are a conservationist and you're desperate to solve a problem.
I mean, it's a good idea because there's one thing that people are picky about. Are
Yeah.
sometimes picky about, it's what they eat, and something that's very important to everyone's health and everything. Yeah, I think that's a good strategy as any. Slightly mad, but yeah, it really, really, yes, interesting. And I suppose.
Yeah, sometimes we like to spread rumors like that. Sometimes we tell people when we start working in a new area, they see that we use camera traps, right? Because we have cameras all over the place, and we tell people that we have tiny cameras, all over the forest. So whatever they do, they're gonna be filmed, they're gonna be photographed. So yes, it's not super nice to do that, but we do
Mhm.
it.
Well, it probably the local police force and everything probably love you because it'll reduce all sorts of other crime, I would imagine as well. People
They do.
um,
They do love us, and we actually we make sure to establish a really good relationship with all these different agencies. When we get to a place, we go to the police station, we go to the road. How do you say in English? Road manager station or whatever, and so we always introduce ourselves. We make sure to have a good relationship. So yes, they do love us.
mhm, mhm. I think yes, and it's probably a good idea for your own sake as well, because if suddenly the police were getting lots
Yeah.
of calls about there's a woman putting up cameras in they're going to be very confused. So yes, it makes sense.
Uh,
Um,
yes.
But yeah, that's fantastic, and I think it just goes to show that sometimes the most out there or creative ideas. I'll stop saying crazy. Creative ideas can sometimes be interesting and effective things to do. Because
Of
how do you?
course.
I imagine they're impossible to track when you start a rumor like that. But do you feel like was it a success? Do you know anything about how it impacted people? Certainly, if you were getting texts about it, it probably at least reached them. So that's a good thing.
Oh, when we were doing that, we were going through that work. We were interviewing members of the community
Hmm.
to assess several things that we wanted to assess. We wanted to ask questions about hunting,
Hmm.
and it was not like a formal interview. We didn't get to a person's house and just sit down with a piece of paper taking notes. We would just get to the property. We would sit down and have coffee, start a conversation. We had the questions in our minds, but we were not taking notes, and we were just having a long conversation.
Hmm.
We had loads of coffee, lots of uh, mate. We had spent afternoons talking to people living in the area. We did 100 and something interviews. So we were going through that work while we were spreading the rumors. So every time we got to a property, every time we got to the house of somebody we were going to interview, they would just, well, we heard, we heard that you guys have been working with tapirs and you found lots of diseases, and oh my god, pesticides, and what should we do? And well, don't kill tapirs. It's a very simple way to solve the problem. So we know that everybody knew that we have, these are small communities around the areas where we work, the very small villages. So people hear about everything we do. They know what we're doing, and so yeah, I guess I'm pretty sure we managed to scare everybody.
That's fantastic, and I think yes, it goes to show the power of perception and these stories and rumors and things. Really, really interesting, and I guess a good message for the listeners: be careful what you say, because be careful the information you spread, because it gets around. Yes, that's fantastic, and a brilliant story. I was going to ask kind of. About working in kind of with them with tapirs in kind of a practical sense as well. But I think before we get on to that, I'm at the first question I kind of want to ask is kind of to do with the communication, I suppose. In that, do you find it aside from the rumors and kind of talking to people in that, do you find it hard to kind of communicate the tapir story and the message to people to try and get them to want to protect this animal, or is it a relatively, because it can be,
Mm,
once you know it, it's very charismatic. So what is there
mhm.
challenges there in terms of communicating their story?
There's lots of
Hmm.
challenges. Not a lot of people know what a taper
Hmm.
is. It's still a problem here in Brazil and many countries in South America, Latin America, Southeast Asia. So we still have a lot to do when it comes to teaching people about tapers. What this animal
Hmm.
is. Here in Brazil, for instance, whenever people get very confused about, they confuse tapirs. They think tapirs are capybaras. They think tapirs are
Hmm.
anteaters, wild pigs, and all kinds of animals. When I go around and you talk to people and you ask people, oh, what do you do? And people ask me, so what do you do? And I say, well, I work with animals. I'm a researcher. Oh, what animal? Oh, the tapir. The question I get, immediately is, oh, the tapir, the animal that eats ants.
Hmm.
So yes, the giant anteater. It's super, super common. So I get that question a lot. I love to go to zoo. When I go to zoos, I love to go to the tapir exhibit and I just stay there. I just watch, I observe. And I see, families and kids and people coming to the tapir exhibit, and most people don't look at the signage, and they just they look at the animal and, oh, well, what a beautiful anteater, what a beautiful hippo,
Hmm.
what a beautiful, everything you can possibly imagine. So we have a long way to go when it comes to making, I don't know, a good percentage of human beings to know what a tapir is.
Hmm.
Here in Brazil, in particular, the people who do know what a tapir is, they associate this animal with lack of intelligence. Um, it's only here in Brazil. We tried to find the explanation for this in many different ways, in books and talks, conversations
Hmm.
with elderly people in rural regions in Brazil, and you name it. We tried everything, and we cannot find a reason for this. But it's a fact. If you're here in Brazil and if you want to call somebody stupid, you call that person a taper. Uh, and it's a problem.
Hmm.
It's a huge problem for us because we need people to be proud of having this animal, the largest land mammal in South America, the gardener of the forest, and so many other reasons. We need people to be proud of having tapirs in Brazil, in Argentina, whatever. And here in Brazil it's very difficult just because of that. When people talk about jaguars,
Hmm.
oh my god, we have this large cat here in our country and we need to conserve it. It's so powerful, it's so majestic. But yeah, well, the tapir is the stupid animal. So communication is a big part of what we do. It has to be. For many years, we focused on science, publications and giving talks and conferences and pretty much preaching to the converted.
Hmm.
And at some point, we realized, we have to talk to the public, to the general people, to the
Hmm.
common citizens of this country, and they need to know what a taper is, and they need to know the threats they face, and they need to care, and they need to be proud. So we do quite a bit of communication through our work here in Brazil because it's absolutely needed.
Hmm.
So your question, yes, it is a challenge to communicate the taper conservation cause still.
Hmm. Hmm. It's interesting, especially having spoken to Arno in a previous episode this season about the anteater, and kind of speaking to you. There are similarities in terms of threats, but in terms of everything else,
Yeah.
they are so completely different animals. And it's one of those things that I suppose for me, I am constantly surrounded by people who love conservation, and we're constantly talking about conservation and animals and all these things. So it's hard for me to imagine people getting them mixed up, but I've experienced the same thing when you go to zoos or whatever it is. If there's a mild connection that one animal looks even remotely like or could be remotely associated with another, people will get confused and will make those
Hmm.
distinctions, and try and links.
Yeah.
And it's it's a real challenge. And I suppose I will be posting many photos of tapirs on all of my social media for the next few weeks, so go and look at go and have a look at those, and you'll realize just how different they are. And also, yes, very
Yeah.
offended on their behalf that they are the animal that represents stupidity, because that's just not fair. That's it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, they're super, super intelligent. There's been studies about it. So it's very unfortunate.
Mhm. It's a bizarre one, and it's I suppose you always get these animals with the unfortunate connotations. You've got things like someone being called a snake or something would be an indication, but
Yes.
at least I guess in the snake sense, they're kind of slithery, they kind of hide away, and so they can be. I can remotely see that association. I don't want to see it, but I can. Tapirs being stupid, don't agree with
Uh-huh.
at all. That's ridiculous. I don't.
Yes.
I'll not have
Yes,
it.
yes, yes.
um, if someone called me a tapir, if I ever was called a tapir, I'd probably say thank you, and then that would make them think I actually was stupid because I wouldn't realize I'd been insulted. But yes.
No, but we actually have a campaign. We have a hashtag here that we use a lot in all our communication outlets. It's a hashtag taper is a compliment.
Hmm.
So and we have stickers, we have t-shirts, we have all kinds of merchandise, and we get personality, celebrities to wear the t-shirts and take a picture so we can post. And it's just a black T-shirt with a white, a white saying "taper is a compliment," taper ante elogio in Portuguese, and uh, and I have that all over our field trucks. And yesterday, 2 days ago, I got I wasn't I was stopped. I wasn't moving. I was in the traffic light, and somebody next to us they were super excited about the stickers, and they wanted a sticker, and they talked to us in the car. uh,
uh,
so it's a really well known campaign here in Brazil. The taper is a compliment.
that's fantastic. That is absolutely fantastic. And yes,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's the perfect kind of reframing that they deserve. Um, So yes, now that we've kind of talked about the communication aspect, what I wanted to shift back to slightly was the practical difficulties, I suppose, of studying an animal that, yes, as you mentioned, comes up maybe dawn and dusk and is active at dawn and dusk. And
Hmm.
we've talked a lot about camera traps, which I suppose help get round the practical difficulties. But is it still kind of, even with the assistance of technology, is it still a difficult thing to kind of study these amazing animals, or is it becoming easier, or how is that kind of developing, and how does that work for you?
It is becoming easier because
Mhm.
technology has developed so much for the past 25 years. Like right now, we use GPS collars instead of the old style VHF collars. The VHF, you would collar the animal, you would capture and color the animal, and you had to monitor the animal with the little signal receiver and the antenna.
Mhm.
So you had to be out there getting the signals and locating the animal and taking notes and all of that. And now we use GPS collars, and I get the data through email. So it's a lot more convenient. Camera traps, yes, of course, they came to help. But when we started in 1996, we didn't have any of these. We had, as I said, VHF telemetry, but that was it.
Hmm.
We didn't know how to capture a tapir. So it's, as we said in the beginning, it's a large animal, 250 kilos. So how are we going to go about catching these animals? How to anesthetize them? So yes, okay, if we're going to anesthetize them, we're going to have veterinarians as part of the team. We'll need, we'll need to get experience on, drug protocols to be able to put them to sleep and blah blah blah. So we had to go through a bit of a learning curve
Hmm.
throughout the years to to find the best, the safest methods to catch them, anesthetize them, safe for the tapirs and also safety for the team.
Hmm.
It's working during the night. It's a bit of a limitation. It's not for everybody because it's a matter of light.
Hmm.
It's more difficult. It makes it harder for us to be aware of whatever is happening around us. So yes, it continues to be challenging.
Hmm.
It's not. It's working with tapirs. It's not for. It's. You have to have a certain. You have to have a certain passion for the animal because it's
Hmm.
exhausting. We're now starting the program in the Amazon, and every time we start a program, it's a little bit like starting from scratch again, right?
Hmm.
Because it's a different place. You're looking for the best locations for the traps, or if we decide to dart them, what are the best locations to wait for them to come to bait them. Uh, uh, Different areas have different issues. Like, I don't know, in the Cerrado, it was very dangerous for us to work during the night because there's lots of drug dealing in the region, there's lots of cigarette dealing in the region. So we had to be aware of the dangers of your working during the night. um, so yes, it has improved a lot, but it's still very, very challenging
Hmm.
for us. But we keep going.
Yes, yes. It's the joys. I feel like nobody gets into conservation thinking that it's going to be an easy, enjoyable stroll in the woods type job. I feel like so. Yes, that's
You kind of know. You kind of
yeah.
know.
um, but just yes, it goes to show the kind of yes, the type of person that you and your team must be. Very determined, very kind of hopeful, empowered, kind of yes, really good. Uh, Before I compliment you too much, though, that was leading on to a really long compliment. But that would just I feel like make it awkward on air. So I'll save the compliments for the end when we're wrapping up. Um, but I suppose something that will probably make the practicalities and the working with the tapirs easier is I suppose that the
Mhm.
specialist group, because you have this network of people all over the world, as you mentioned before, all working with this common goal in mind to kind of protect these fantastic, brilliant, wonderful creatures. And I wondered, kind of, could you tell us a little bit about that and your role within it? Because it's not very often you speak to the chair of an IUCN specialist group, so I have to ask, what is it like to kind of run and be a part of that?
Hmm. Hmm. Well, as I said in the beginning, it's a wonderful group. I'm super proud of the Taper Specialist Group. I've been there for more than 20 years. Lots of young people, lots of young researchers. We also have, the people that have been working on tapers for a long time, but we try to include every time we find a new researcher, somebody, starting a little project in, I don't know, Malaysia or somewhere. We go to that person, we bring that person to the group, we try and stay in touch. The taper specialist group is we're very good with networking and
Mhm.
communicating. It's a group that shares a lot, we collaborate a lot. It's very special. It's a very particular specialist group. I always make jokes because you ask me what's your role as the chair, and I always make jokes about this. That right now, after so many years, I don't really do much because the group is so wonderful, and throughout the years, we created a bit of a structure.
Hmm.
So we have I'm the chair, and then we have species coordinators. So we have four coordinators. We have country coordinators. So we have somebody for Brazil, somebody for Nicaragua, Malaysia, Indonesia. So all the different range countries. We have a veterinary committee. So if somebody comes to us with questions about how do I capture a tapir? How do I anesthetize a tapir? What kinds of diseases tapirs deal with?
Hmm.
We have a committee that can answer those questions. We have a genetics committee. We have an action planning committee. So the structure that we created together, kind of, if we get a demand from someone somewhere, we most cases we're able to direct that question, that demand, to somebody who will be able to help. So the group works very super smoothly. So really, I don't have to do much. One of the super nice things that we're doing right now is we're how do I say this? We're establishing joint tapir conservation
Hmm.
projects. So we have a world tapir conservation program, including different projects in different countries, and we raise funds as a joint program, and it makes it much easier for us to have access to the big
Hmm.
grants that we wouldn't be able to access in any other way. We have a Latin American Tapir Alliance, and we also work together raising funds for the work of different projects in Latin America. So this new model works really well for us, because I'm sure you know that tapirs are not really a priority when it comes to funding agencies. So we have to be super creative when we put together projects to raise funds. And joining forces has been a very good model for us.
Hmm.
So it's a really wonderful group, very active in many different fronts, and yes.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It seems like, yes, if you're all shouting about and trying to get attention onto the same thing, especially when that thing is not necessarily, despite how charismatic, lovable, incredible, like tapirs can be, all the way from while the young have a kind of advantage over the adults, maybe in terms of cuteness, just slightly, and kind of how charismatic, they don't have the kind of yes, they don't tend to be included in the discussions of kind of charismatic megafauna, which seems
No.
strange to me as someone who really loves them. But yeah, it must be very useful then to have the kind of this backing and these big group that a lot of people, and kind of to work together and shout about these animals and get attention onto them and share resources. And it's, yeah, it's amazing to hear about, and really interesting, I think, because it's not something that I've had the opportunity to speak to somebody about before. So really interesting to hear behind the scenes of that kind of the thought process maybe behind a group like the IUCN tapir specialist group. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, and there's all kinds of groups, huh? There's many different groups, and we work and different groups work in very different ways.
mhm,
The Species Survival Commission sometimes organizes these meetings where they bring all the different specialist groups to interact,
mhm,
to talk and exchange ideas, and talk about success and failure, and ups and downs. And it's very interesting to see how more than 150 different specialist group work in so many different
mhm.
ways. Very, very
Hmm.
interesting.
Hmm. I can imagine it must be absolutely fascinating, and yes,
It is.
fantastic, and yeah, just a perfect to kind of borrow and kind of ideas from one another, and it'll help to kind of grow,
Yeah.
because they might have had a crazy or creative idea that you hadn't thought of, and then they might see your kind of rumor strategy and think, oh, that might actually work quite well for us as well. So Yeah, that's yeah,
Yes.
fantastic. And I guess that's kind of that was one of the last questions I wanted to ask. But I think before we go, there's a couple that I always like to ask everyone, because I think if we've just spoken about tapirs for an hour, so there's going to be people out there who have fallen in love and want to do something to help you, or to kind of support
Mhm.
them, or just kind of act in a more eco-friendly way, I suppose, to try and help tapirs. And I wondered, what would your advice be for someone who is feeling inspired, about how they can either help you or help other organizations? What would your advice be for someone who's looking to support tapirs? Is the basic question. I got myself all tongue tied, but the question is, how can we help tapirs?
I always get this question,
Hmm.
right? And lately, I've been, well, first I would answer, well, let's recycle, let's, try and not, let's try not to waste, resources, energy, electricity, and water, and all of that. But lately, the answer I've been giving to this question is, we need people. We need people. We came to a point where we need people to connect, to reconnect with nature.
Hmm.
I think we lost that. And I see that as the main reason why we are in the situation where we are today when it comes to, the climate and everything,
Hmm.
all the environmental challenges we have been dealing with. And I strongly believe, Jack, that's, that all of that is caused by the fact that we are now completely disconnected from nature.
Hmm.
People don't, they don't, just, go to the forest, walk, barefoot in the forest, or, just climb a tree. I don't know, just travel, come to Brazil and visit the Amazon, or go to, the whatever natural area you have in your country, or your local public park. Connection with nature. I think that if the humankind, if human beings were more connected with nature, if they reconnected, we would have, uh, people would be better prepared to care,
Hmm.
when it comes to conservation of, plants and animals, and protected areas and natural places and whatever. um, I've been feeling very strongly about this, especially when it comes to kids, to children. We're not providing that to our kids. We have to make sure that we do for the sake of the next generation. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but as I said, I feel very strongly about this. People have to get out there and connect,
Hmm.
reconnect.
I think so. It's the perfect answer. I think it definitely answers the question, and it's something that I think a lot of people, especially in the last few years, are kind of thinking about. Is this, if you're locked inside your house all the time, just in front of screens or whatever it is that you're
Mhm.
doing, um, it's not good for you personally, and it's not good for your connection to nature, because you'll lose that. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of people, certainly around, certainly in Scotland, I think a lot of people found a joy for kind of hill walking and getting outside during the last few years. And I would encourage anyone who hasn't kind of gone out and reconnected with nature in that way to do so, because yeah, it's fantastic advice. And even in the background, I could hear the dogs were agreeing, um, um, with everything you were saying.
I'm sorry about that. I have four dogs.
It's okay. It's it makes it more. One of my friends who I've interviewed on the podcast, Tasnia, I'm pretty sure now every time she works for the Bangladesh animal
Uh-huh.
welfare organization, and they obviously, she has a love for dogs, because they have this kind of street dog issue with kind of conflict between people and street dogs. And so she has this wonderful dog Facebook that every time she's recording an interview, every time she shuts that door, he's barking in the background because he wants he wants to. It's like they know, and they want to be on the podcast too. So can't blame them. Um, but yes, that's fantastic advice, and I think brings us very nicely towards the end of our chat today. If anyone's interested in I guess in learning more, um, do you have a website or social media or something you direct them towards to keep up to date with all of your work?
Yes, yes. We have tapers all over the social media. We have a Facebook, we have Instagram, we have Twitter, we have YouTube. If you look for Lowland Taper Conservation
Hmm.
Initiative, you're gonna find us. So and it's all the news about the program, all the news about everything we do. We and the team, everybody in our team is very active on our social media, so you get news from all of us. It's super exciting.
Perfect. And yes, I will make sure and link all of that in the description for the episode so that everybody can go down there, check it out, find it all, and do whatever they need to do. I'll also put links to all of our social media down there. So if you're feeling like you want to follow
Hmm.
or keep up to date with the podcast, you and all the other amazing guests we've had, a South American focus almost in this series. We've had another episode all about anteaters and armadillos. So you can go and listen to that one
Hmm.
I've mentioned a couple of times. We've got episodes coming up about koalas and all sorts of stuff. So you don't want to miss out on all of that. But that's not South America. That was just a tease. In case people think I think koalas are from South America, that's not. That's not. I was. That's just a tease of something else that's coming. I'm not that completely re- removed from what a globe looks like. I just realized as soon as I said it, I was like, people are going to think I'm mad. No, so we have episodes coming up as well, non-South American themed episodes about koalas, red pandas, all sorts of things. So make sure and check us out on there as well to keep up to date with everything, and subscribe on your podcast streaming service of choice. If that's Apple or Spotify or wherever it is, you can do that as well. Um, and that kind of brings us to the end. I guess all that remains is for me to say a massive thank you, of course, to the listeners for listening and hopefully learning to or growing their love of tapirs. But of course, also I have to say a massive thank you to you for all of your work, Patty, and all of the kind of things that you do. And it's genuinely, I feel like I shouldn't say this because we have so many guests that are, but genuinely tapirs are one of my favorite and have always been one of my favorite animals to visit and see and learn about. And I know there are a couple of listeners who are also would want me to extend their thanks as well. A couple of our previous guests, Connor Davis, who works on the Chester Zoo Youth Board, and Lizzie Seymour, who works at Edinburgh Zoo,
Oh.
they have mentioned to me to say kind of like thank you for all your work. We are big fans of tapirs and everything you do. So thank you so much for making the time to speak to me and all. Yeah, and all of the work that you do. Thank you very very much.
No, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's for us. It's very important to have people like you. You know, just helping us spread the word as we talked about. So thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's always nice to talk about tapers. I always get super excited, and I'm always happy to share. I joke about this that every time I take a cab, I start talking to the cab driver. The first thing I do is to ask the cab driver, "Do you know what a taper is?" And depending on the answer, I start a whole conversation. So yes, I love talking about tapers. So thank you so much for the invitation, for having me, and good luck with everything. Good luck with the podcast. It's amazing. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. And yeah, that's going to be me from now. I'm going to get into cabs and so, do you know about tapirs? And if they say no, I'll just start playing this recording and be like, listen to this then. Well,
How much time do you have?
just I'm going to have to get taxis for an hour just to random places just to talk to people. um, but yes, that brings us to the end. Thank you once again. And yes, before we kind of
Thank
talk for another hour, we should probably wrap up. And so, thank you once again.
you.
Thank you to all the listeners for listening. And until next time, goodbye, everyone.